Hey y'all, it is Alicia Garza here representing Black to the Future Action Fund. We are going to wait for a few of you to join, and while we do, let me give you the scoop on what we are up to today. Today, we are talking with Alexis McGill Johnson, who is the president of Planned Parenthood Action Fund. She is an incredible powerhouse, and we are so excited to have her. So as we're waiting for her to join, today's conversation is all about giving you the real deal Holyfield about what is actually happening with this draft decision. I mean, did they overturn Roe versus Wade? Can we still get abortions? What does this all mean? Alexis is here to tell you all the things, and we're going to talk for a little bit together. So I'm going to get Alexis on in here. Let me tell you a little bit about Black to the Future Action Fund. Black to the Future Action Fund works to make Black communities powerful in politics so we can be powerful in the rest of our lives. And the way that we do that is by equipping our communities with the tools we need to build Black political power. And one of those tools is news you can use and information that you can trust. And that is why we are here talking with Alexis McGill Johnson, who is the homegirl, the hand grenade, the one who is going to lead us. I'm sorry to put it on you like that, Alexis.
That's a lot, girl.
We expect you to lead us through this damn madness because it is madness. So, as I said, Alexis is a badass and is the head, the president, the head honcho, the HPIC of Planned Parenthood Action Fund. We have talked with Alexis before about what could happen in this moment, and it looks like Alexis is also a fortune teller because everything she said was going to happen is happening. So Alexis, first, let me just check in with you and ask you, how are you doing?
You know, I have to say, it's been a rough week. I'm not going to lie. It's been an exhausting week. But I have a little bit of peace, a calmness of having known in December, right, that this was coming. The shoe is already halfway on the floor, and we weren't organizing and pretending like it wasn't going to happen. We were getting prepared. We were getting rallied. We were getting mobilized. So when it hit, you know, it's always like takes your breath away because you can't believe that people could be so completely dastardly and, you know, demonic. And at the same time, be like, okay, you know what? We know what this is. When we've been fighting this for as long as we've been living, for many lifetimes. So let's go.
That's right. So help us just understand what happened. I mean, listen, I was out to dinner with our friend, Rashad Robinson from Color of Change, and we were having a conversation about, you know, life. And then all of a sudden, both of us, our phones were going crazy. And they were talking about somebody done leaked the decision that they are about to like announce at some point, and it caused a lot of confusion. Can you give us like the very basic breakdown? Is this law now, or are they just leaking what they're about to make law? Make it make sense.
So it doesn't make sense that they actually leaked an opinion from the Supreme Court. That is brand new. We've never seen that happen before, at least not, certainly not in our lifetimes. It is a draft opinion, right? So normally, after a court, the Supreme Court has heard a case, they deliberate and they send draft opinions back and forth to each other to review. That's part of their process. Someone has taken this opinion and leaked it to the press. And what it said was that with Sam Alito, Justice Sam Alito writing the majority opinion, that Roe v. Wade has hereby now been overturned. So what it means in reality today is that abortion is still legal. People who have appointments for tomorrow or who are seeking access to care can still get care in their state, depending on the restrictions in their state. They still need to check, and they should go to abortionfinder.org to do that. What it potentially means in the future, because normally the court waits until the end of the term so that they can get themselves out of town to drop the most controversial decisions, is that in a few weeks, it is very likely that this draft opinion, which the court authenticated and said was a real version of an opinion, but not necessarily the final version of opinion, will be handed down. And when we get that decision, we will know exactly where people stand. Now, I'm going to tell you, Alicia, you know, people are speculating, you know, was it this clerk? Was it this justice? Was it, you know, this person, you know, who had some interest in trying to sway, Kavanaugh or, or Roberts or let the left know what was going to happen. All of that is a distraction, right? What we do know is what is actually in the opinion, how they are thinking about arguing, taking away a fundamental constitutional right that we have held for 49 years.
Mm-hmm. Alexis, I think, and I know you experience this, right? Abortion has become such a lightning rod issue, but it's healthcare. It's literally like a thing that you do with your doctor, just like, getting vaccines or flu shots, right? Or getting some other kind of surgery. Like, this is a part of a relationship between a person who can bear children and their doctor. But this draft decision actually said a lot of things about a lot of things. It talked about abortion, but it also kind of implicated some other stuff. Can you break that down for people? What else was this thing talking about? It was pretty wide ranging.
It was incredibly wide ranging. And you're absolutely right. Full stop. Abortion is healthcare. What the opposition has done is made clear that the way we are fighting about abortion, we should understand it is about power and control. And it is about who gets to interfere in your decisions. Who gets to, do you want a politician interfering in your decision? Do you want Ron DeSantis to tell you what you can do with your body? Do you want Marjorie Taylor Greene to tell you what you, no, you want to be able to make that decision yourself. So what else is wrapped up in this case? So we have been saying all along, even if they had let, this case, which was about a 15-week ban in Mississippi, the case was brought against Jackson Women's Health Organization, which is the only provider of abortion in Mississippi, the lone independent provider, that if they let that 15-week ban stand, it would then actually start to unravel all of the threads of equal protection that have been guaranteed under the 14th Amendment in the U.S. Constitution, because that is where Roe lives. I think we talk oftentimes about Roe being about freedom, and as a value, it certainly is. It's about the freedom to self-determination, but we also try to ground it in equality, and we should be very clear that Roe was not about equality. It was the way it was constructed. It was around privacy. And so the other rights that are associated with privacy in the 14th Amendment, the due process, are marriage equality, right? Whether or not you can marry the person that you love, the loving decision, right? Which is whether or not you can marry somebody of a different race. Come on, Ginny and Clarence, what you gonna do then?
Okay.
They're all of these rights that we value, right, around how we express ourselves, our very identity, and how we see ourselves as free, citizens of belonging in the U.S. Constitution. And so with Roe potentially being overturned based on this draft opinion, or even if they let the 15-week ban stand, it will still be unraveling many of the rights that we have come to enjoy as our opportunities to live full expressions of ourselves.
The draft decision also made reference to a case called Plessy v. Ferguson, which, for those of you who aren't like constitutional law people or legal brief people, you should just know that Plessy v. Ferguson was about segregation and racism. Now, why would Justice Alito make any kind of reference to what was going on with Plessy v. Ferguson when Black people couldn't have the same accommodations as white people could?
I mean, that's what's so crazy, right? They're bringing in Plessy versus Ferguson, right, which was the Supreme Court's decision on separate but equal, and making the point that Brown v. Board actually overturned Plessy versus Ferguson. So there are times when, in fact, like they're trying to position themselves as civil rights heroes, when in fact this decision, right, if this decision is true, it would be like Plessy overturning Brown. Like, they've got it backwards. It's about taking away a right, taking away a level of freedom as opposed to restoring one.
Right. They're literally trying to go backwards. For those of you who are watching, if you have questions, go ahead and drop them in the question box. We're going to keep going, but we're going to try to get to everything that you're asking too. Alexis, look, the truth of the matter is, and I hate to say this, this is like a stain on the women's movement. Sometimes some of us have been getting left behind. And oftentimes when we're talking about these issues, we're really talking about white women. But this issue in particular around healthcare, around family planning, It has everything to do with Black women. I mean, look, I live here in the South now, and I will tell you, I live in a state, right, where there is an abortion ban, 6-week abortion ban. I also live in a place, right, where state legislators, right, have been literally making a movement out of refusing to accept federal dollars to expand access to healthcare for poor people, poor Black people, poor white people, poor everybody people, but there's a lot of poor Black people here. I want to understand this issue from a racial justice lens. What does it mean to be restricting access to healthcare for Black folks in this country?
Yeah, and I look, the abortion rights are racial justice rights, and we can thank our reproductive sisters, reproductive justice sisters in the South who have driven this conversation over and over again. I'm shouting out Monica Simpson and
That's right,
Sister
Sister Song,
Song
shout out.
in your city. I know exactly, people who have consistently made the point that you can have a right, you can be guaranteed a right, and yet if you don't have access, right, because there are a number of restrictions in your way that are meant to target you, because you don't have funds to access the care that you need, because there are no providers, because you live in an abortion desert, you still can't access the right in the same way. And it is not always a choice, right? Because in fact, we don't always have choices in the same way. Not everyone has equal choices. So the impact right now of all of these abortion bans and healthcare bans are going to disproportionately impact Black, Brown, Indigenous people, people with low incomes, LGBT communities, the people who have the least access to resources, the people who have been invested in the least in our society, the people for whom we have the least empathy, right, are also the same people who are going to face the harshest barriers. The same states, as you said, that are banning access to abortion, like Georgia, are also not expanding Medicaid. They're also restricting voting, right? They're also many of the same states that have the highest maternal mortality rates. And we know that the Black maternal mortality rate is 3 to 4 times higher than white women. So either we're going to force people into pregnancy or perhaps force them into death, right? Like that's the kind of craziness that we see with these kinds of restrictions and how they make this not just a reproductive justice issue, but a racial justice issue. I would also just really quickly, Alicia, point you to the Missouri law. I don't know if you saw there were 2 laws that came out that were completely insane. One was banning abortion for ectopic pregnancies. So when the embryo is stuck in the fallopian tube, which can only result in either the fetus dying or the embryo dying, or the person carrying the embryo dying. So banning that, I mean, like that's kind of crazy. Again, more likely to impact people who have the most impact. And the one that just blows my mind is the idea that they want to ban accessing abortion care if you cross their state lines, right? So you can be a resident of Missouri and you can get pregnant. And if you go outside of state lines, they will prosecute you. So they want to trap you in state. And we know that they do this. We know how draconian they are because, you know, just a short few years ago, the Missouri State Health Commissioner was tracking Planned Parenthood patient periods in an Excel file to figure out whether or not they were carrying people to term. So the surveillance, the criminalization, all of these things are also going to redound to impacting Black communities much differently.
I'm hearing even in places like Arizona, they're trying to pass condom bans. What are we doing, people? Okay, let's get to the real business though, because everybody wants to know, what can we do? What is the best use of our time, Alexis? Because we know the Supreme Court justices, they're not elected, okay? You know how they get there, people? We elect people that then recommend folks to sit on the court, and that's why elections matter, because the president, right, gets to nominate people to sit on this court and decide if this court is going to be a court that expands our rights or takes away our rights. And our last president, you know, the one we shall not name, he got to appoint hella judges that did not share the values of the majority of this country. And that is how we get here, my friend. Alito was not appointed, was not confirmed, was not nominated by the dude we're not going to talk about. He was from the Bush era, but we got a couple of them in there from these last couple years, and it's all bad, child. They out here having a party. So Alexis, what can we do? they're not influenceable, right? Because we didn't elect them, but there's a lot of pathways here. So
yeah.
Give us the scoop. What's the best use of our time and energy right now?
Look, the best use of our time is to organize and mobilize. We know that, you know, if you care about power over your own body, if you care about making sure that you retain control, we know that politics are also about power. Politics are also about getting people who would not otherwise do what you wanted them to do it anyway. And so building political power is the most important thing that we can do. And some people may say, I'm not really into politics, or that's not really my thing. Well, then you know what? Then you're going to ceding power over your body, and you need to be good with that. I'm not. So what I'm engaging in is making sure that people, you know, on May 14th, which is this Saturday, we are going to have, there are going to be like 200 events across the country. You can go to Bands Off Our Bodies and find out a place to be near you so you can be with people who are in community. We have seen an incredible rise of participation just in the last week, people signing up for shifts, because that's how you power democracy, by every, you know, literally everybody engaging in what it means to turn out every vote on this issue. You can support, you know, everyone from abortion funds to independent abortion clinics to Planned Parenthood affiliates, to ensure that people are getting the care that they need right now. Because first and foremost, you know, even without Roe being overturned, there are still so many restrictions. Like Texas, there's a 6-week ban with a bounty hunting provision in it. People are having to travel out of state. So getting them the care that they need continues to be really important. And talk to your friends. I mean, honestly, Alicia, I'm so shocked by how many people are not having these conversations with their families, with their friends, in their networks, you know, with their corporations, right? With their bosses, to say, like, I work in the state. What is going to happen to me if something happened to me? I'm your frontline worker. Are you going to fly me out of the state, you know, like, or am I going to get fired if I take these 3 days off to travel to Illinois in order to get access to care? Like, we need answers to those questions, and we need to put these major stakeholders in the position of answering them for us, because this is about our lives. And we need to make sure that everybody understands that.
We've got a couple of questions coming in here, Alexis, so I want to make sure we get to a few of them. Is there a pathway via legislation to protect privacy rights altogether? Like, can we just bypass the damn Supreme Court? Or are we looking at a situation where each of these rights needs separate legislation?
Good question. So look, first I would say tomorrow the Senate is voting on the Women's Health Protection Act. Again, this will be the second time that they are voting on it. We don't, you know, obviously getting senators on record, holding them to account as we move into, you know, this next electoral cycle is critically important, because we need to be able to explain to people, show people why they can't have what they want, right? Why the people can't have what they want is because you have a little more than half of Congress who's not stepping up in order to preserve your rights. And what the Women's Health Protection Act would do would be a version of codifying Roe, would be protecting privacy in that way. So yes, I think that we have to think about what the electoral strategy, what the federal legislation strategy is, but we can't get there, honestly, unless we adjust the filibuster. So we are limited unless we expand the Senate majority or reform the filibuster. We are not going to be able to pass the legislation that guarantees our equality. So then what next? I also would say, like, yes, federal legislation is going to be critically important. We need it. We use it all the time to uphold rights and reinforce rights and access to it. But our equality lives in the Constitution, right? That's the document that guarantees whether or not we are free or not. And we've had so many amendments that continue to have to reinforce whether or not we're free. So unless we are saying, you're going to kick me out of the Constitution, what is my path to get back in? That is actually the conversation that we need to be having. That is the long game. And I think that it has to be organized around true equality and belonging and inclusion.
And you know, they've been trying to lock us out the damn Constitution for a hot minute, but hell no, we won't go. One last question, Alexis, which is like, look, we want to be able to impact what's happening federally, but we have some opportunities right now. Midterm elections are coming, people. And you know what? This isn't just happening at the Supreme Court. They're passing laws in your state trying to restrict your access to healthcare. So what can you do, even if you're not political? Well, you can find out if the people that want your vote share your values. And if they don't give them your damn vote. But if they do, mobilize yourself and all your friends and everybody in your damn community. People who are like, I'm not really sure I'm going to vote. What are these things about? Oh, it's so about laws happening in your state. Can you also talk to people a little bit about
Yes.
state opportunities for power?
Perfect question. Yes, thank you. And thank you so much for this, because I think there are two strategies here, right? The first is, if the draft opinion is right, Roe gets overturned, we will see immediately state after state, they're already positioning themselves. They're emboldened by this draft opinion and where the court sits, to start passing state legislation. If Roe is overturned, it goes back to the states, and they are passing state legislation to create more restrictions or overturn Roe. We've already seen the opposition announce that they want a nationwide 6-week ban. So we know where they are going. We know where they're going. So it is important, critically, to focus state by state, find out what's happening in your state houses, because those are the laws that affect where you live, whether or not you can travel outside of your state for abortion. That is real. So we will see over the summer these state houses come back into session and showing up and demonstrating, not just to your federal representatives, but also your state representatives, what are your values, and do you believe in my freedom or not? That is key. And then we will be moving that energy, right, straight into the midterms. Those are our inflection points in movements, right? You know, elections are not everything, but they are about how we move the movement goals forward. And so it is important for us to show up in November in a big way. And we can already see the opposition is terrified. They thought they had this, on lock. And now they understand that this issue is front and square in people's minds. It connects to everything else that we've been talking about. It connects to the economy. It connects to racial justice. It connects to democracy reform, things that we are getting passionate and loud about. And so being involved in all those conversations matters too.
Oh my God. Look, y'all. First of all, Alexis, you're amazing. Thank you. Let me just say shout out to Planned Parenthood Action Fund for always fighting for us. Thank you for joining on such short notice, but the people needed news they could use. Thank you for giving it to them. If you want to get involved, you can get involved with Planned Parenthood. You can get involved with Black to the Future Action Fund. Listen, let me tell you who matters to this state question that we were just talking about. Governors. Oh, there's a lot of governors up for re-election right now. We need your vote. Let me tell you who also matters for what's going on right now. Secretaries of state. Oh, those are the people who get to decide if you want to vote, if you get to vote or not. So if you want to take action on any of those levels, you can join Black to the Future Action Fund to make sure that we are getting people in those positions that have our values and our interests at heart. In the meantime, we're going to make sure we save this video. Let's hope, because I'm tech illiterate, but it's going to happen.
Thank you, Alicia.
We love you, Alexis. Thank you for being with us.
Holding us down and making sure that the people are getting the right information that they need. There's so much to cut through, and your voice matters. It is so important right now. So thank you, and to everyone who supports the Black Futures Fund, because this is our future. It's real.
Let's go. Alexis, thank you for joining us. We know you're running. Thank you for being here with us. Stay tuned for these conversations, y'all. We're going to keep bringing you news you can use, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.